In this video, we'll explore ready-made content available in Smart Learning Suite Online. So my students today were learning about frogs. I asked them to tell me what they know about frogs, and now we've worked on some content in our lesson. It's time to reflect on what we've learned. I'm going to come down to the bottom of my screen in the left-hand corner here, and I'm going to click on the blue plus sign. Now I'm able to add some content to my lesson. When I come down to ready-made resources, I'm going to explore questioning and reflection. So I'll click here. I could ask my students to contribute to a shouted out activity, and I want them to tell me a plus, a minus, and something interesting from the lesson. I could ask my students to contribute 3 facts, 2 questions, and 1 opinion to a shouted out activity. I also have some ready-made response activities, like do you agree or disagree, where my students can tell me if they agree or disagree with the statement that I add. Or how do you feel about the topic, where my students can respond, if they're really getting this topic or if they would like a little bit more practice. Just note that shouted out and response are activities that I'll run live during synchronous lessons with my students. Now, if I come to the bottom, I could create a ready-made handout activity. A handout is a great way to connect with my students during a synchronous live lesson or during an asynchronous independent lesson. Again, I have a 3-2-1 option. I could ask my students to provide a 6-word summary. Maybe I would want my students to explain what they learned. But I see right here that I could grab this ready-made handout for my students to share 3 things that they learned. All right, so I'll select this activity. It's already set up as a handout for my students. If I click to preview, it provides my students with a space to add 3 things they learned and then something they still wonder about. Just note when I'm in preview mode, I don't see all the tools that my students will have access to during the handout. If I click out of the preview and I go into finish editing into lesson delivery mode, then I'll be able to see all the tools. So I might add some more directions here. Share 3 things you learned about frogs. And then I can click finish editing. Before I do that, just note I could also attach an audio recording to this page where my students could listen to some directions that I record. All right, so I'll click finish editing. And once I finish editing, my students can come down to page 3. As a teacher, I can click on student progress. I can also click to preview the handout by clicking on teacher handout. And I can see what my students will see. They can add images, maybe a frog on a lily pad, and that's something that they learned about today. Or maybe add text. Frogs begin life as a tadpole. Okay. And so on. They can continue to add. I'm able then, like I said, to share this lesson out with my students during a synchronous lesson and connect them to hellosmart.com, or I'm able to share this page with my students to complete on their own during an asynchronous lesson.